Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of Theater Talk Live. That's right, it's Tuesday, and this is the show where we get to talk about all the things that you love. And today, the thing that we love is Steve Smith. That's Steve. We're all You're the one we love today. So for everybody out there that's all like, "What? Who is this Steve Smith guy? I don't know this dude." Well, Steve works with a company called Bravas. Am I saying that right? Bravas.
You are indeed.
Right on. And they are all about the home experience. And as you all know, I'm all about the home experience as well. But this company takes it to, I mean, just I've seen some pictures of the environments that you guys put together, and it is amazing. All right. Now let's get started with a little foundation. Steve, let people know who you are and why they should care.
Well, I'm not sure why they should care, but that's my own Canadian background coming up. I work for a company called Bravas. We operate in the home experience design space. So a lot of companies that do what we do traditionally would call themselves custom integrators. We think that sells a little short the length of involvement we have with our clients in their spaces. Really, we're focused on, especially when people are building a new home or designing a new home, working with their architects and designers and making sure that the technology that's going to suit their needs and provide them the experiences they want to have in their home are integrated early, properly, easy to use, and absolutely understood. It's really fundamentally about living in harmony with your home.
I love it. I love it. So, as folks join, we're here with Steve Smith from Bravas, and we're going to be talking about the home experience. And I think people need to understand what all that is inclusive of. They're all like, what's this dude talking about? I mean, what is it? So let's talk a little bit about, how you define the home experience, and then, what the company Bravas does as a home experience designer, and then why you might need a home experience designer to have a good home experience. And then, I'd like to talk about how the home experience term then ties into smart home and CI and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because it's one big ecosystem, but I think this term is a little bit new for folks.
Yeah, we the way we look at what we're doing is traditionally, people go, well, we want a security system. Oh, maybe we want a doorbell camera that we can see. They like music, so we want to do distributed audio in a house. They have all these light switches, so we want to take control of those. And you have all of these individual subsystems in houses and categories. So traditionally, people have said, well, the electrician does the lighting, my interior decorator is getting us blinds, I've got that audio guy that's selling me a theater, I'm going to put a TV over the fireplace. And they're thinking about individual product sets. What we try to do is look at what people do in their homes and how they're going to live in it, how they want to entertain in it, how they need it to function. So, for example, if I was talking to you about music and audio, rather than initially having a conversation about whether we were going to do invisible speakers, small aperture speakers, subwoofers throughout a house, we're going to talk about what kind of music you listen to and when. Do you have a lot of people there? If you're a huge Lizzo fan and you're like, yeah, we throw dance parties in our house every Saturday, we're going to make sure that system performs that. If you say, I listen to NPR in the mornings and maybe some John Denver over a glass of wine, it's a very different experience, both very valid. They both require kind of some different technology on the back end to make it happen.
Right on. And I will point out to everyone that you went straight to the Lizzo.
Yeah.
And she's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. We were talking subwoofers earlier, so it's just immediately right there.
That's right. That's cool. Now that makes a lot of sense. When you talk about this whole experience, in the home, some people call it the smart home. What do you think are the main components of that system, right? So, when I talk about home theater, people ask me, what's the most important component in a home theater? And my answer always 100% is the seating. right? Because
Right.
if I'm not comfortable, nothing else matters. I'm not going to sit, uncomfortably and watch the most beautiful screen for 2.5 hours, or 12 hours if I do a Lord of the Rings extended edition kind of thing. But
Exactly.
what are the bits and pieces that kind of go into this? So there's audio, and I mean that I'm sure there are components that people just really aren't considering, right?
So absolutely. Traditionally it's audio and video, right? TVs, speakers, security systems, cameras for surveillance. We're generally controlling HVAC. Both, you've got you can control the temperature in your thermostat, but we also work a lot with systems that monitor air quality, and we make sure that if you have an automatic ventilation system controlling fresh air in your home, that it's actually working. That your kid's bedroom's CO2 level is where you want it to be, etc. Um, we deal a lot with lighting control and shading. It's kind of the easiest way to make the correct ambience happen right in your house. So again, to go back to the theater analogy or situation, immediately people they expect you to say which screen you like, right? Or
Right.
which speakers you like, or which remote you like. But maybe you're really stoked about the shades that block the light out. Maybe you're super happy about the seating. Maybe you care a lot about the carpet in the room because it sets the right mood. Our approach is that all of those things matter. And if you take your entire budget and say, I went out and bought the best audio system I could, and there's a 36-inch television at the front of the room, you're not having a great experience. If, to your point, you buy a great screen and speakers and there's nowhere to sit down, it also doesn't work. So it's really taking anything technological in the house and making sure that it's interacting well with each other and giving those customers the needs they want. It also primarily plays into some super unsexy things like Wi-Fi, power quality, the ability to reboot your streaming
Right.
device, that they all lock up eventually, right? So
Yeah, and it's
they're
it's like in
being able to
some
manage
closet in
those.
the basement that you can't get to
Exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Right.
I would like a special tool that would let me unstick a sump pump that was stuck. Not that I've had that happen, but I think that would be the nightmare scenario of something that you can't get to that you would want to deal with. There's gotta be a tool for that.
I'm gonna make a note.
There's gotta be one somewhere in Colorado. That's
Yeah.
quite a
The
quite a
engineer half of my brain is like sorting out how I could do that.
Yeah,
So what
because
I what I
there's
do
a
in the
float and it goes up as the tank gets
uh-huh.
full, and then it hits the switch, and then it runs, and then the float comes down. But if the float gets stuck up, or worse, it gets stuck down, then you float.
Right. So that's an interesting uh again, like as much as it's fun to joke about, right? When we talk about being in harmony with your home, um, we did this survey we were involved in a couple years ago, and basically 10% of people said, absolutely, I understand all the technology in my house. I feel really comfortable with it and everything works the way we want. And that was just like across the US where we conducted this survey. We're like, wow, that number is really low. And 30-40% of people said, well, I have no idea what we're doing. And
Right.
60% of people said, I wish someone had explained this to me sooner. So it's this interesting pocket. And you look at things like sump pumps and we go, well, they're really important. But arguably, I bet a lot of folks really don't know what the condition of the battery backup is on their sump pump. They don't know what the situation is with the water coming into the house. And, maybe it's a great idea to have a system that tells you, hey, that battery needs to be replaced. And
I can tell you the
also,
condition of my battery.
what's
I don't
that?
have one. It's
There you go.
the worst condition.
Exactly. It is not going, the battery is not going to fail on you. That is the one upside, right?
That's right. Yeah,
It would also
I
not
might have a swimming pool at some point, but
right.
no,
Right.
that makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense. Um, oh man, so that you bring up a point that kind of hits close to the home for me. So you said that there was the survey asking if people were satisfied with their technology, right?
Mhm.
So I was looking at my basement room, my man cave, my theater, right? And I built it very much from a DIY perspective. It's a
Mhm.
retrofit room. So there's a room, right? And I was like, okay, this is gonna have a screen and projector and all that kind of stuff, right? Not purpose built by any stretch of the imagination, but it gave a pretty good experience. But what I discovered over time is that I just it wasn't the right fit for me, right? Because
Mhm.
with the content creation that I do, a good chunk of it is product evaluation, right? So I find myself in that room and I need to have a display on, but I need to have the lights on because I'm trying to put something in a rack and plug things in, and then I need to look at the
Right.
screen and well, you can't really do that with the projector. You need the lights out or super dim, and over time it's just like this just doesn't work for me, right? There's got to be a better way. And when I was building this thing, I didn't really take into consideration the use case for the room other than, well, this is how everybody builds a theater, so that's what I'm going to do too, right?
Right. Exactly. That
Yeah.
is exactly correct.
So
We
so I'm in
we see
process
that.
right now of changing
Okay.
all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've ripped out my projector. I'm gonna put up a
Mhm.
direct view display. I'm gonna start with the television and then move through hopefully to LED wall technology and talk about
Yep.
that. But I think you were about to make some great points about really understanding your use case, right?
Well, yeah. So one of the things we see a lot, like I love who doesn't love a dedicated theater, right? They're awesome. It's just a lot of fun. They're great to use. What we're seeing increasingly in spaces is people go, well, I don't know that I can give up a 20 by 30 space to a room that is very specific in use. So we
Yeah,
end up doing a lot of kind of like family rooms, or there'd be basements with a wall of windows. And if you're in Colorado, if you're in Colorado or you're in Florida or California or Idaho for that matter, and you've got floor to ceiling windows on one side of your house, and it looks out into some beautiful landscaping or a lake or wherever, and you've got a projector, unless you spent a lot, and I mean a lot of money, if you're trying to watch your football game at noon on Sunday, it is going to be a very unsatisfying experience.
super
Whereas,
miserable.
yeah, so you go, okay, we can put in some light management. I can put some blackout shades in there. Well, that's also not a great experience because you got 30 people over at your house. You can't even look outside. So, we're seeing a lot more direct view, whether it's to your point, a micro LED or like a 115-inch display going into that room, whether or not the actual picture quality, frame rate, those things don't matter when you realize 80% of the time you want to use that space, it doesn't function. So we try to make sure we're matching those technologies to the application for the room, right? And people are having a good time. They can use it the way they want to use it. It still gives them a top flight experience when they want to sit down and watch a movie, but they're not locked into that single use.
Yeah, and this this ties back into my philosophy around room design now. And I'm far from being an expert in this field, but as I look at it, I think I'm fairly decent at kind of picking up on trends and understanding things. The technology available has always driven room design for people who are interested in experiences, right? And
Mhm.
that's what led to the way that home theaters are designed today, right? It's the technology. So if you roll the clock back, people discovered, okay, well, I can make a photograph. All right. Okay. Now, oh, I
Mhm.
can take a piece of film and I can shine a light through it, and then I can move the film really fast and I can make moving video. And that's where things got stuck, right? They just worked on uh, perfecting that paradigm, right? And the reason they did that is because there was no better alternative. Well, fast forward to today, well, the early days of television, it was horrible, right? The picture quality just couldn't come close to
Mhm.
film projection, and then later digital projection. And then when television, the actual aesthetics of it, the beauty of watching the picture, uh, became quite nice. Well, the size just wasn't there, right? And we're still at the size struggle, but now it's not so much a size struggle anymore because we can now scale those displays as big as we want. We're now just at the money struggle, right? Because
Right.
once you go over 120 inch ish, projection costs, are precipitously lower than what you're going to pay for a LED wall, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the tipping point right now, I think for most people is okay. I can buy a 100-inch screen, and if I'm going to be close enough where that gives me an immersive kind of environment, TV is the way to go. Once you go bigger
Absolutely.
there, you need to do UST or rear projection. But over time, that's going to change. I'm like I said earlier before the
Mhm.
show, I talk to LED wall companies, daily that are trying to figure out how to enter the US market, right? And they're
Mhm.
like, okay, we can do a 120-inch screen for 7 grand, right? That's our cost, right? And can we sell this in the US market? We can do 150-inch for 20 grand, which is the same cost that TCL charges for their 115-inch single panel TV right now, right?
Mhm.
So we're about to see a huge change. And what's going to happen is as these screens become affordable to the mass consumer market, right? And I'm not talking about the folks that they look at their experience and they say, okay, I've got a budget of 200 grand. What can we do with that, right? I'm
Right.
looking at folks that I've got a budget of 50 grand, and I want to have amazing
Right.
experience. They will be able to do that with direct view display technology. And when they can do that, then the whole concept of how we design not the large luxury super big homes, with the kind of man cave kind of thing, in the smaller homes, just the general use of any type of family room is now opened up to a stellar theater experience without having to set the room aside. I
Absolutely.
I don't know if I got around to the point, but now the room
Mhm.
design changes because the technology has changed, but the experience is just as good as a dedicated theater room.
Exactly. And when you really, I think all budget really does, and I also do not have a 200-inch direct view LED behind me, so we're all in that boat. I think all budget really does is allow you to ignore physics a little more,
Sure. Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, it allows you to kind of ignore some more things. But the reality is, as long as you're considering what you want to do and you understand what the options are, you can make that experience solid. And I agree with you that we're going to watch, I think we're going to see a lot of massive changes in the next 24, 36 months. And I know you could say that kind of at any point in history, but the reality is, we sat for a long time going, a 65-inch display is like, that's it.
Yeah.
After
A
that, it's a
very
projector.
long time.
And then it was like, oh, a 75. And then it feels like, 18 months ago, people went 85s, 88, 95, now 115. And it's just like, boom.
It's
And
just
you're
like that.
watching micro LEDs come the other way. And all that really does is start to open up some really cool possibilities. We have a client in Houston, Texas. We're doing a high rise for them.
Mhm.
And functionally, it is windows. If there's an exterior wall, it is floor to ceiling windows. And they want to see, what they pay for that price for. So there's also these large, like 2 foot around columns going everywhere.
Mhm.
And one of them has a double stack of those two columns. So we basically wrapped a column flat one side and wrapped around the other with, it ended up being just video walls that did that for us. And it's basically a floor to ceiling full size display that functions as a fish tank when he's not watching TV. So, like, it blends into the environment. It provides a high quality place to have a display that he never has to think is there. And it doesn't interrupt any of his viewing space, right? So that hit all those ticks. Now, the idea that we could do that at a much lower price point a few years in really starts, to your point, opening up minds. It's one of the reasons what we try to do is get as close to kind of the architectural phase of a home design as we can. Because if we can actually start having conversations at that level, before engineering plans are drawn, and go, hey, how can we integrate these technologies into the house to both serve the design, the homeowner, and their experiences, the better, really.
Yeah, and to the gentleman that, that had that system put in, big
Mhm.
thanks to him because it's folks like him that,
Mhm.
making the investment now, really set the stage for the technology to become a bit more affordable for kind of
Absolutely.
the rest of the world to jump in as well, right? So,
Mhm.
we have to go through that phase, the early adoption phase, and that's where we're not even in the early adoption phase anymore. I think we're beyond that, right? Now
Yeah.
we're in that scaling rapid, market adoption phase. And like you said, 18 months ago, that's what happened for the television market. Um,
Yep.
Hisense
Absolutely.
and TCL said, "You know what? Sorry, Samsung. Sorry, LG. Sorry,
We're
Sony.
just gonna do it.
We're about to do this thing. And just
Mhm.
because you guys won't sell a 100-inch TV, we're going to come in and do it." And now you see those companies, the big three, kind of catching back up, or at least in the U.S. market.
Yep.
The rest of the world's a bit different, but um, they've pushed and the market has shifted. Just video walls, you saw them
Mhm.
at the CEDIA last year, right? They came in and they pushed, and now the market is changing. I mean, before those guys came in, you would go to a Quantum or you'd go to a Planer, you'd go to a,
Right.
and it was huge dollars, right? And
Yeah.
they came in and their dollars were still pretty big, but they turned the knob. And then this year they come and they really produce Lunar. I think that's
Yep.
the new lower cost model, right? And
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
twist that knob down a little bit more, right? And
Yeah.
I looked at all of the technologies there, and I would be happy with their entry level product.
Yeah. Well, and that it was one of the great statement pieces about that, um, is they hung that wall in the hallway functionally.
Right.
So like by default, you're a foot and a half away from it going, that looks really great. And then
Not
they
bad.
tell you
Yeah.
where that sits in the scheme. And you go, wow, you're really making a push. And we're seeing it with landscape audio. We're seeing it with kind of discrete audio. So traditionally, we've always done our industry, ton of in ceiling, a ton of in wall speakers. People have made really good ones. They made really bad ones. There's a that market has gotten really saturated with high quality product. And then a few years ago, we started seeing small aperture products. So you've got a 4-inch can light in your ceiling. Let's do a 4-inch speaker next to it. Well, 4-inch speakers don't sound great until you innovate and do a bunch of engineering behind the ceiling so they still sound good. And
Mhm.
now we're moving into speakers that are literally invisible. There's a membrane that you do a
Right.
skim coat
Yeah.
of mud over.
It's painted. Yeah.
And those also, when first released, you were like, well, it sounds good for an invisible speaker. And I got to tell you, there's some like 2 and 3 way product on the market right now that sounds really good. So you could do, for example, in that living room we were talking about earlier, where you've got a row of windows and it's more of a contemporary look. And you can have a large scale display because everyone likes to see, but interior decorators and, whether it's wives or husbands who maintain the home and the look of the home, get a little irritated when they start going, okay, this is Atmos. So we got 3 of those in the front, 4 in the top, 2 in the back. There's a big sub in the corner. You start being able to do all of those rooms, provide a relatively high fidelity music experience or movie experience, and there's no visual impact. So again, that's how do you get everybody involved in harmony with this idea, and just really think outside the box a bit and make sure you're delivering something that keeps
Yeah.
everybody happy.
You mentioned landscape audio, and that's an area that I really had never had much experience in until I was approached by Magna,
Mhm.
and they're out of Brazil, and they said, "Hey, would you make a video about one of our landscape speakers?" I'm like, "Okay." I don't know anything
Yeah.
about land. I mean, I got a little tiny place here in Colorado. I got a little backyard. Let's do it, right? And
Uh-huh.
so they sent over one of their polys, which is it's a I guess it's called a bollard on top, and then a
Yep.
inch buried sub on the bottom, and it's got 3 speakers and it's 360. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, that thing is absolutely phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, just the one speaker just fills up my backyard. So when we go back there to grill, it's wonderful. And then, I stopped by and I actually filmed a video for them at CEDIA, which is in queue to be edited right now. But their demo, they have an extremely is an amazing demo that they put on at the show, and the sound that they have coming out of
Yeah.
landscape speakers rivals things that I've heard at two-channel hi-fi shows. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, there's a lot of, probably think of 4 or 5 vendors that are hitting on that right now. Sonance, Origin. There's a ton of people addressing that part of the market. And whether you're doing something like that baller design with, a buried sub, because it turns out if it's underground, no one cares how big it is, right? So you've got that
Yep.
little port on top. There's companies that integrate landscape lighting into that model. So now you could have actually audio and lighting down a pathway, towards a lake or a backyard. There's companies incorporating line array technology. So, I guarantee you heard the ambisonic demo at
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah,
CEDIA,
very nice.
because wherever you happen to be in the room, you heard that demo.
Well, that is the Origin Acoustics way of doing things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love those guys. I've known them for a long time.
Yeah.
But those speakers, like, as much as that was a stack of 4 aside with 218s, etc., if you hang 2 of those on the back of like a lake house, I am not kidding when I tell you you can do the Neil Young thing and go sit 100 yards out in a boat and listen to that system. Now, that doesn't probably work for you where you live, or for me in downtown Kansas City, but
yeah, because I got two blocks of neighbors that can join with us, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But it's all about having the right solution for the right experience, right? So having all of those things available really allow us to just kind of stop saying no to things people want to do at some point,
Yep.
And that's where this job gets a lot of fun.
Yeah, speaking of, being, leveraging the right form factor, and exterior speakers. So there's a company called 65 Audio, and they produce what looks like pathway stick up lights. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like a little post, like you'd go to Walmart and buy a pack of 20 of them, right? And you'd stick down your pathway, and they've got like a little solar cell on top, and then at nighttime they just come on. Well, 65 Audio, they make something that's much more aesthetically pleasing. It looks very nice, but it's an outdoor speaker system along with path lighting. So there's, I guarantee everybody out there, if you're looking for something, there will be someone creating or building something that works for you. Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's really the beauty of, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but like that concept of designing the home experience and being in harmony with what you're doing. It's going, hey, I can pick and choose from all these technologies, because there's a ton of people making a ton of products, and a lot of them are really good. And
absolutely,
I will go out on a limb and say it's kind of like car audio, right? So you buy a car and they say level 1 comes with a stereo. Level 2, you add Sirius XM, and then level 3 will be like a brand name with 9 speakers.
Right.
You still don't know what's in there. They never tell you like, oh, there's a 2-inch, driver up front and an 8-inch sub. You just know like, oh, I've heard of that name, so it's the premier option. Well, this is a funny thing that the kind of CI space and what we do really took a long time to grab onto. And I don't want to offend anybody when I say this, but a lot of the specific products we use don't necessarily matter in and of themselves, as long as they perform well.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. The brand's not a big deal. Yeah.
It's really about what you do with it, because, that outdoor audio display that was filling that convention center, if you sit that in your living room, it will sound terrible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're 8 feet away from that in a 14-foot wide room, it will sound awful because it's the wrong place for it. So just having the thought about all of the components that are going on and making sure that experience is solid is really kind of that key element, and it's just what I keep running up against. I mean, I'm sure you've been in listening rooms or theater rooms and gone, wow, it'd be great if there was some acoustic treatment in here. Like this room actually, you walk in and you hear yourself speak and go, this room actually sounds bad.
Yeah.
None of these speakers can
I
sound
have
good in this
I
bad
have a
sounding room.
story. I have a story about this. So, I
Hmm.
was at a company called Alcon's Audio, and they make, speakers, in the past they're in the home theater market now, but in the past they were doing concert venues, big line arrays,
Yep.
and then also monitors for mixing rooms and that kind of stuff. And so I went out and did some filming for them. This has been a number of years ago now, and I had never been to a real mix studio. Right, I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about it, right? And so I went to, I can't remember the name of the company, but, it was right there in Los Angeles, and, they had, like, 9 different studios to mix
Right.
in, beautiful, and this was, one of their Atmos facilities, and you walk in, and it's a pretty big room, it's like, I don't know, 20 by 30 or something like that, and,
Hmm.
the entire room is treated, right? Floor to ceiling, right? It's amazing. And I kid you not, the feeling that I had when we went in, you go in and everything's quiet, and then you talk, and everyone sounds like James Earl Jones in there. You're all like,
Yeah.
"Hey, man, how you
Yeah.
doing?" I mean,
Your
just
voice just falls out of your mouth and
it's
stops. You're
it's
like,
it's
whoa.
just beautiful. I mean, just and that's when I
Yeah.
knew, I'm like, "Oh my god." This, step out of the room, and it's like slap echo and horrible in the
Yeah.
hallway. Step into the room, and then it's just beauty. I'm like, you could take some $15 Sparkomatic speakers and put in here, and you know what? It's not gonna be too bad.
Exactly. We've got a really cool, there's a cool manufacturer named Kinetics that they're wizards with this stuff. Like they do things like, the Dallas Convention Center where they had CEDIA about 8 years
Uh-huh.
ago. That entire building floats on springs to isolate the noise of the train that runs underneath. So like
Right.
Kinetics floated that whole building. So that's a
Nice.
one scale. They also make a pretty cool product that when it's finished looks like white painted drywall.
Mhm.
So like you could in a room like the house I live in, and I don't know how apparent it is on the video, it's a boxy contemporary hard floor, hard roof, hard sides. It's a pretty live room. So they make a product that you could replace the ceiling with absorptive acoustic treated material. And then there's a kind of a rigid fabric that goes over the top of it that just looks like drywall from 3 feet away. So you'd never know
Sure. Yeah.
anything had been done.
Like
But
stretch
like,
fabric wall, right?
right, but it just doesn't look like fabric. So you walk
Okay,
into a
cool.
room that's been treated that way and you're like, whoa, this sounds great. You don't even know it's there. And like, you don't even need to have speakers in that room. It could just be that, hey, my kids do their homework in here. And when they put their crayons on the table, it echoes and it's harsh. So let's
Right.
make that feel better, right? Like
Yeah.
there's applications past what we even do, which gets kind of wild.
Yeah. So, for everybody just joining, I've got Steve Smith from Bravas, and we were talking about the home experience design, right? And in other words, kind of the CI world of planning and developing technologies and strategies to really create a pleasant experience in your home, whether that's theater or multi-channel audio or whole home audio or sound treatments, acoustic sprinkler system, whatever it might be, right? It's all those
Right.
technologies that go into the home. And just got people out in the audience saying hi. Hi-Fi Havens here, Van Gool is here, a number of others. Feel free to jump in and say hi. If you have any questions, let us know those as well. But now, all right, so we got 20 something minutes left on the long end, and I have a list of different technologies that I was going to bring up, and so maybe we can just rapid fire, these technologies out there, and if people are interested in these, maybe they can get a taste of what's going on. Um, so what's new in advanced home automation systems, right? So that's the CI bread and butter, right? Let's put in
Right.
some Crestron or some Savant or some Control 4. So what's going on in that world?
You know, a lot, frankly. The fundamental kind of operating system of a large scale deployment for us. So if we're controlling lighting and shading and audio and a theater and security and cameras, you obviously want to have a single application to get to that. There's a lot of flavors out there. You mentioned most of the players. There's also some companies like Josh AI that really take a pretty advanced software version to it.
Mhm.
Biggest new things that are happening. Apple Music finally has opened its doors a little bit and been
Oh,
available
cool.
to multi-room streaming services, which has been a big frustration for a lot of folks. Also, just companies really focusing on making it simple to control a lot of backend systems. So all the players, Crestron just had a major software release. Savant's got a major software release. Control 4 is a major software release. Josh AI just released a major new software. They are all driven towards making that app easier to use and more configurable for a customer. So, for example, in 10 years ago, even if you had a massive system and you said, "Hey, we're having a graduation party next Saturday night, and I really want to play, the best of Barry Manilow because that's what you love, and I want the lights to be red, and then I want the TV to be on channel 6 so we can watch the local football game or whatever." Then you're calling your integrator. They're coming out, they're opening their laptop, they're building
Right.
the scene for one use. Whereas now, these companies have all made it pretty easy for the end user to go, "Hey, when this happens, do all these things at this time," boom, and you can really configure them yourselves pretty well.
That's outstanding. So the next topic is smart lighting solutions, and I didn't understand until this CEDIA because I did a video for Aspire
Oh
Lighting.
yeah, the wax stuff. That's
So
awesome.
they are whack, and which is the oldest joke in the world for them apparently.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
They are a WAC company. I don't know what WAC stands for, but they are whack. And their stuff is amazing. I've got the video up for revisions right now, so that the company's checking out to make sure I didn't dork anything up. But that'll post up here pretty soon. And
Nice.
it's just amazing. I'm like, I want to buy all these lights. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't have the, they're like, oh, you can spotlight your artwork. I'm like, I don't have anything like that, but I can put it on my popcorn box that I got from the movie theater.
Yeah.
My back wall. It's gorgeous stuff.
Great company, really great fixtures. Their outdoor lighting release this year was really cool. So they had that kind of area of their booth that was kind
On
of
the
a
left
bench and
side,
some
yeah.
trees, right?
Mhm.
So they're doing outdoor landscape lighting. There are all what they call RGBWW. So it's white lighting that's color matchable. So, for example, they had like a Chinese or a Japanese cherry blossom tree,
Uh-huh.
and their demo is, here's white light, and it lights up, and you're like, "Oh, looks cool." And then you take it and you like mix some reds in, you add
The
some
red.
greens, and all of a sudden it pops up, and the light next to it is on a different type of tree, and its color blend is a little different. What you end up with is something that looks like it's just naturally lit. So they're doing that using a single 18.2 wire that runs to all the fixtures, and they're all digitally addressed and communicating through the same wire that your dad's 12-volt landscape lighting system when you were a kid ran on. So you can
Right.
just basically swap out fixtures with these, put the controller in, and be dead current in technology, which is super cool, especially outside. You're not digging things up, tearing up flower beds. You're just using existing wiring or laying it down new, and it's just one loop.
What'd you think about the ceiling fan they had?
Um,
Do you remember that thing? It was like 100. I mean, it's
I love that ceiling fan.
so
Um,
big.
there's a number of reasons I love it, but primarily because as ceiling fans have gotten better, they're all using their own RF remotes. They're not using AC motors anymore. They're like really difficult to control.
Right.
And so WAC released this line of really good looking fans that work really well and are really easy to control with a third party control system. So I am a huge fan.
Right on.
Pardon the pun.
Sure. I love it. Yeah. I say I'm a huge fan. So and speaking of remote controls, there was a company at CEDIA that I'm in love with, and that's the Ava brand.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying it right? Ava?
Ava, yeah.
Ava? Yeah. And
Their logo looks a lot like the middle of our logo.
it is. I was all like, this is Bravas, an Ava company, or maybe it's Ava, a Bravas company, or you guys,
definitely not.
you
We
guys
do
should,
not own them.
I love the technology. I've actually got I got the remote Oh, it's
Hmm.
somewhere around here. I've got to get it activated and set it up so I can do a review video about it. But
Yeah.
it's the cinema remote is gorgeous. So lots of cool
It's a
stuff.
really cool piece. It's functionally the remote that Josh AI uses um, for their control system. It's also um, not to bring up scary news, but the same folks who designed the Halo remote for Control 4. So
Sure. Yeah.
they've done some really good work over the years.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next topic we've got here, which is automated window treatments.
Yes, big
So,
fan.
so I've got some power shades upstairs,
Hmm.
and I've got their I don't know what they call it. It's their automation tool. So I guess it's an RF controller that connects to their
Hmm.
cloud service, and you can program scenes and stuff like that. And I'll be doing a video about that one at some point. But another thing that you don't know that you need until you try it out, and then you realize that, man, it's really nice to have these things open up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then close at 7 or
Hmm.
what. It's just so nice, right? And then if you do like a dual layer, you can have one open, leave the hazy one down, or what. It's just so
Exactly.
nice. And then if you want to, hit a button and your whole house closes or opens. Or
Hmm. Yeah. So Lutron, which is a company we do a ton of work with, they released a new kind of line of shades at CEDIA. So it's a little less cost, which is great, but it also implements some really cool features like you tell it where you are. So it goes, oh, you're at 123 Sycamore Street in Denver, Colorado. I'm not doxing him. That is in his house. The It knows, okay, this is exactly where it is. So it knows when the sun rises, when the sun sets, when high noon is.
Mhm.
Um, you also tell it, hey, this is a south facing window. And so it'll actually automatically go, oh, the sun is shining in this window most likely now. So I'll lower this to this level,
Right.
so you don't have to deal with the heating issues. But in the winter time, you can tell it, no, leave it up. I want to
I
have it
want it to
doing
come
some
in. Yeah.
co-work with the room. Right. And so as it interacts with, once you have automated shades, one, they're hyper convenient. They look really cool. And, even in my house, like there's a door with a window at the front, window, two more in the kitchen. Like it's a lot to manually operate, not to, first world problems, but it's a lot of manually walking over there and doing it.
Mhm.
If they're automated, it's clean, it's tied together. If you take that next step and tie it in with your lighting system, now you go, hey, the shades came down. I want to add this percentage of lighting. So it
Right.
just feels neutral again. And, it really all starts to become a kind of a cohesive unit. The funny thing about specifically lighting control, but even AV and security, is the more intense the integration is, like the more shades you have, the more lights, etc., the easier it gets to operate. Like it's like a inverse curve, right? The
Sure.
more difficult what a company like us does, the simpler it is to use and live with. So,
No, that makes a lot of sense. I've got to find some. So in the room that I'm in now, so this is like I don't know, it's like maybe 15 feet deep, but it's maybe, I don't know, 30 feet long,
mhm.
rectangular. And, we've got bookshelves across this wall, and there's like an elliptical over here. And then this, there are a couple of desks on the side and doors and a bathroom door and then all the stuff on the side. But over here, there are 3 windows. But I also have a 2-channel listening setup here where I test stuff out. I
Mhm.
need to find some window treatments, some shades that are also acoustically useful, if that makes sense. Is
It
there a big
does.
market for that kind of stuff? Because I
So, not so much with shades, just because when they go on the roller, you don't want them to be too thick.
Mhm.
What we see a lot in that is motorized drapes.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you could drop those over. You could also do a roller with like heavier fabric on it. It just wouldn't be a conventional shade if you want to drop away.
Right on. Yeah, I gotta figure that out because it's time to do that for this room. We finished this basement years ago. I just never put any window treatments up in here. It's just
Mhm.
big holes into the window wells, and you can see the ladder going up.
Right.
We're
Right. You're
we're in
like,
the basement.
nailed it.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, that's as far as we made it. All right, so next topic, um, and this one is super stimulating: whole home Wi-Fi and network optimization.
Oh boy. You
It's
just
thrilling.
here's the thing. Everything else we have talked about, and I mean everything, down to the sump pump earlier,
Right.
leans on that system. So it's something that we look at as it's like a critical infrastructure piece, right? This is roads and
Uh-huh.
sewer.
Yeah.
We got to have it. Um, there's been a lot of pretty cool developments on that front. I think similar to how we were talking about TV technology, like sitting stagnant for a long time and then growing so fast. As soon as 5 gigahertz networks came out and we started seeing some disruptors on the kind of ISP side, like basically when Google decided we're not making enough money, we need
Right.
higher speed internet. How about we just start giving fiber away for free? And everyone else went, oh, 30 megabytes isn't going to cut it, so you can kind of get ultra high speed everywhere. So what we're seeing now is a lot of innovation in the home Wi-Fi space. So Wi-Fi 6 has been super prevalent. Wi-Fi 7 is right around the corner.
Hmm.
Access points are getting a little smaller. They're getting faster. They're handling density better. They're also, we're seeing a lot more kind of cloud management for that.
Right.
So, that's what allows, for a company like us, it allows us to kind of proactively know, hey, Gills, your Peloton is offline in the basement. Is everything okay over there? Do you need us to send somebody out? We just, we got a notice that said it hasn't checked in about 2.5 hours. Just so, when you go down at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, you're not going, oh, I've got no Wi-Fi down here. So everything from that to, kind of triple three-leg antennas becoming more and more common. So if you do a mesh system, rather than it slowing down because it has to talk to each other, it actually has its own independent network to do that mesh talk. So really from the lower end kind of consumer grade networking all the way up to kind of like commercials, really a lot of forward jumps happening
Yeah.
this year.
What are the big brands these days? So, I've got a Ubiquity system here at home that I installed.
Uh-huh.
I've got some Alta access points, wireless access points that I'm playing with too. So who are the
Mhm.
players there that you're familiar with that you see out there?
I mean, I think in our industry, excuse me, there's a lot of Ubiquity is there. It works really well. I think the tech support side gets a little bit tricky, but if you know what you're doing, you can have a really great product and it really stands up. Um, Snap One's got their Arachnus line that works really
Mm.
solid. They're pretty well geared towards the CI industry. We just saw Netgear make a pretty major step in. I don't know if you saw their
I
booth at
saw them.
CEDIA.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention though. And I got a
It,
card from someone. It might have been Nick Gear. I'm not sure.
yeah, they're doing some really cool things specific to our industry, which is nice. Like if you do a large scale video over IP deployment, it's not just, oh, let me plug the switch in and give it a address. Like there's a lot of very specific routing functions that have to be enabled. So Netgear is like, oh, you log in and you hit this button that says Crestron and it auto configures, right? So
Yeah. So
they're
are
kind
they
of
doing
really
stuff like
stepping in.
setting a VLAN and doing quality of service and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
they're
too?
doing all of that. They're making all of that really accessible to people that are not IT professionals, right? So
Right.
this CI industry, as it turns out, a lot of us didn't do the 4 years of networking. Also,
Sure.
whatever we did learn 6 years ago doesn't apply anymore anyway. So
That's very
there's
true.
that, and then Ruckus is always ever present. On the Wi-Fi side, that's pretty top shelf gear.
Right on. Now, what about climate and energy management? Right. So for me, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I bought a Nest controller
Yep.
because it was like the cool thing, and it's been there ever since. Right. And I use my app to
Yeah.
control it, and that's it. Right. Um, where are we at today? I mean, yeah, obviously Nest is still out there, but everybody else in the world has their system now too.
Yeah, I mean, there's Nest, there's Ecobee. Every control manufacturer has their own.
Like Honeywell has like 200 different models.
Yeah, exactly. And then Control 4's got one, Crestron's got one, Savant's got one, Alon's got one. It's just I guess I'm supposed to call them Nice now. Sorry, Nice has one.
Nice as
Um,
yeah.
What we're seeing a lot more of is going past having a thermostat, right? So like Brown's got their Ovation system, which is super cool. And you actually start talking about air quality and fresh air content and kind of manipulating that alongside of the HVAC network to make things go on. Honestly, beyond that, the biggest push I'm seeing is most high-end HVAC systems are using their own. So you really,
Okay.
if you get like a Daikin home system with a variable speed fan, and they're basically like, if you don't put this stuff in, if you don't use our thermostat, you're going to lose all the features you just had. So the biggest trip for us is finding ways to interact with those products. So like Azone was on the show floor this year. They basically make a controllable mini split thermostat.
Mhm.
So and that's been ridiculously hard to do up till now, frankly. So that's kind of been the biggest shift there.
Right on. Well, you obviously have a fan here in the audience, Cassie
There
Gillum.
she is.
Hello,
Cassie
Cassie
is a dear
Gillum.
friend.
Hey, if she's here to watch you on my show, she is an absolutely dear friend. So, Cassie, props to you. Thank you so much for showing up. Remember, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I can almost guarantee you she's not subscribed to me right now. But after tonight, if she's not, I'm going to call her out in my next show. Like that Cassie, she just came one time. She can come back again. Only here for Steve, not for me. All right, so we're gonna have one more topic here, and as we start to wind down, and this is where you get to be Nostradamus or
Oh,
Nostradamus
good.
and predict the future of home technology, smart home technology. What are the things that are going to make home experience designers over the next couple of years just go nuts and say, "Oh my God, this is the one." So, what's coming? What's the next big thing?
I think I see a couple of trends happening, which I'm really really excited to have occur. One is everything is getting less obtrusive and more
Okay,
immersive, right? So, for example, we were talking about invisible speakers before. We're starting to see systems now where, you've got speakers in the ceiling, there's speakers in the wall, there's speakers low in the wall, which
right,
sounds super excessive until you stand in it. It's the difference between watching a movie in 2 channel and watching it in full blown Atmos.
right,
That's been really cool. I think everyone, as we continue to get more and more connected, the sheer value of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, as far as designing that end goal experience and being ready for that, will just get more and more important because there just
right.
won't be tasks that don't integrate.
That makes
And when
sense.
you can do things like, for example, a cool thing Josh AI was showing this week, um, actually leveraging artificial intelligence to do analytics with cameras. So, if you have cameras, I don't like to think about them being everywhere in the house, but you have cameras around the outside of your house and being able to just ask your system where the dog is.
Mhm.
And it takes a minute, looks at all the cameras and says, he's on the side yard, right? So I think ease of use integrations like that go past, I'm talking to my camera system, or I'm working with my lighting system, but everything is really harmoniously pulled together. It's just going to get more and more integrated.
Right on. I need that for my children. Like, Josh, what are my kids doing right now? Oh, Drake's doing this and blah. That's
Yeah.
creepy, but awesome at the same time.
It's creepy and then it's not at the same time because, the
Exactly.
reality is we're all, any of us that read Snowden's book, we get it. Like
Yeah.
everyone knows, all of our devices know what we're doing. We might as
Mhm.
well get some measure of benefit, right? Um,
Absolutely.
the other thing I think we're around the corner from, and you hinted on this earlier with the micro LED screens, is when I say more immersive, I think the reality of being able to put, a 200-inch display in your home gets a lot simpler and it just gets a lot more affordable. And in the same way that we watched, like we watched when the TVs went to 16:9, I think we're
Mhm.
both old enough to remember
Oh,
this
yeah,
moment.
I remember. I remember
Um,
the whole everything, yeah.
so all of a sudden, 2 years after that happened, we were like, "Oh, 720p exists," and then the NFL started shooting in 720p, and all of a sudden, instead of like if you watch like uh, game films from the 70s and 80s, and you've got Terry Bradshaw's head, whole
Yeah,
screen, this is him,
yeah,
and you watch football last night, and you're going, I can see all 22 players on the field clearly. I can watch this play develop. I'm in it. To now, I'm sure you've seen kind of the TikToks and X's or whatever. I'm horrible with social media. Sorry. Videos coming out of these. There's a sports bar in LA that
yeah,
does
but
this,
it's
for
just a whole room,
example,
right? It's
and
like
it's like a
you're
giant room, and you're
yeah,
just sitting on the sideline.
yeah.
It's a static camera. You're just watching sports. That's now we're talking about real immersion. You look at the Sphere in Vegas. I mean, I'm not saying I want this, but what if your house did that? What if your living room was like
Oh,
ceiling, walls,
I
the
want
whole
it.
9 yards?
I
Right,
don't wanna put up, interior walling. I don't wanna do paint. I just wanna do LED panels
right.
over everything. There I saw and this was crazy. It's a, karaoke room, and they did, LED on floor, ceiling, all the walls,
Yeah,
and they do, like, this thing where the waves come through and you're in the ocean, and it is just ridiculously crazy. I mean,
yeah,
it's really weird, but
right.
awesome. Yeah.
Like everything's far fetched till it's not, right?
Yeah, and now that's really just a function of money, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
all the technology's there, you can do that. You could actually, cover, every surface in your home with LED if you wanted to.
Yeah,
It's just and you
absolutely.
pay for it, yeah, and
We know some
eventually it's gonna
guys
be
who would
cheaper and
love for you
cheaper.
to do that.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, the technology will be where, you could like paper towels. You buy a roll of LED wall, right? And you unroll it and you glue it
Yeah,
up, and then it's got a couple of connectors down at the bottom for power. And you go to town. Maybe it's that thick or something, right? But it's just that easy, right?
right.
It's
And
coming.
I think the other thing that leads me to, and this is a little bit, maybe it's a little bit selfish to mention, but one of the reasons we just went through that entire rebrand. I don't know if you saw our tiny banners at Cevia when you were leaving, but one of the real reasons we're trying to announce this home experience design concept is also what it does to the relationship with with the customer and the homeowner, right? And this is something that I would actually, um, I'm sure my CEO will tell me I shouldn't have told everyone to pick up on this, but I would love our industry as a whole and people who do what we do to be involved with people's lives through the life of that project and beyond, right? You
Right.
know, it's being available to someone at the very beginning, making their technology solutions easy, understandable, meet their lifestyle, and also being there 10 years after that project and going, hey, yes, we did see that you can cover your whole room in LED. I might wait a year. Let you know what I mean? And like being that in a position of trust where you've taken care of people long enough that they understand you're there to kind of guide them through the life of that
Right.
project, right? And I think we've seen that happen in so many other industries. The joke used to always be in our world that service should be, like a 4-star hotel or a white glove. I always want service to be like a great cocktail bartender. So
Sure.
whether you walk into a high-end cocktail bar or a great corner restaurant, that person who's providing you that service, gets to know you over time. They understand, they take care of you. You can rely on them. That's really the coolest. For me, that's the coolest trend because it's something we're working really hard at developing. And as all of this technology goes like hockey stick shoot, who's going to be around to help navigate it?
Yeah.
Luckily, and I don't say this just because I'm here. We have people who are doing what you do to really get the word out and go, this is happening. Here's how this stuff works. I just think the more of that we get in this industry, rising tide raises all boats. We all get better off. People have better experiences.
Yeah, I think one thing that would be good too, talking about people like me and working with people like you is, one thing that I'd love to do at some point is create some content around environments that you've built so that people can really see what it means.
That'd be awesome.
You know what I mean? So, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to go into a home and say, look, here's what was done in this room, and this is why it was done, right? And look what you can do. And then in this room, there's a whole different philosophy here, right? There's a different use case, and this is the reason we chose these technologies. But then underlying here's kind of the foundation and the backbone of the whole system that ties
Yeah,
everything together, right? So, yeah, I think those stories would be, interesting to people that might not understand exactly what can be done because man, a lot can be done.
it would be it'd be really cool to do a case study or two and really look at how that plays out in
Yeah,
the
dig
real
deep.
world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
awesome,
Well, talking about the real world, I think it's time for everyone to go back and join it. So we're at the end of our time.
awesome.
Um, and first, I just want to thank all the viewers out there. Thank you so much for joining. If you have questions, I'll have links down to the Bravas website. And if there are any questions, send them my way, and I'll pass them on to Steve, and we can get that stuff out there and answered for you. And then, Steve, for you, thank you for spending this time with me and talking about what you and your company are doing and the philosophy and how this benefits people and why you're doing it. Right, I can tell that you have a great passion for this, and I think you are making people's experiences and lives richer, through the work that you do, and that's really cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me. And, on behalf of the company, we appreciate it. And just getting to know you a little bit has been awesome. I look forward
Great.
to talking more. I'm glad we did this after Cedia because we got to see all the new stuff. I wish I had done it before, so I could have shook in your hand and given you a high five in person, but
Next time,
we'll
I'll
see
be
you
there
next
next
time for
year.
sure.
I'll be at
Absolutely.
CES. I'll be at Cedia, and we'll see. I'll,
That
I'll
sounds
I'll I'll
rad.
look you up. Cool.
All right.
All right. Thank you,
Sounds
everybody
good.
else. Take care. See you in the next one.
Thanks so much, everyone.